Well, 'tis that time to get really dark. Called the machine shop yesterday, and he finally got his guy back from vacation, and they're back on top of their workload. So Monday, it's really damn dark. Monday, the head for my 66 can go in, so it's about time to be getting it down to the garage to get the head off of it, which is going to be tomorrow's project. But today I just want to get it down there so that it's cooled off and I'm not working on it hot. So I figured we'd do a cold start. Swear to God, if the battery in this thing's dead again. I had the 77 out brush hogging yesterday. I went over that last field I cut fence line on and brush hogged all the saplings and all the grass and stuff down, and went to get this thing out of the barn so I can get 77, and it was dead as a damn doornail. It sits so much the computer just draws the battery dead. Ow, fuck you. Alright, we're gonna play this game again. Old trusty Rusty to the rescue in all of her exhaust leaking glory. This would never happen if we could keep a battery maintainer on this thing, but when we bought this place, the meter was on the house. Well, you tear the house down, you got to get rid of the meter. So now there's no power to the barn. I don't know why when Dad and Granddad did this, they didn't just have the power company move the meter off of the house and stick it on the side of the barn so we could at least have power to the barn. But that was their deal, not mine, so. Will she go? Or are we gonna fight this crap? It was that damn close. Son of a Buick. Okay, now that it's getting darker out, you can't see shit. But trust me, there's a tractor here somewhere. Hey look, daylight. Alrighty. All ready to go on her tomorrow. This is actually... I can't say it's going to be the first major surgery, because the first major surgery we did actually wasn't because there was something wrong with the tractor. It was when we tore the rear end apart to add the hydraulics, because it had a mechanical lift on it. So that was technically the first major surgery we did, but it wasn't because the tractor was broke. It was because we were adding hydraulics. So this is actually going to be the first major surgery, because the tractor needs attention, that we've done in the 18 years that we've had this thing. And my God, it's hard to believe I've had this tractor for 18 years. Me and this old girl got a lot of history together. When Dad first got it for me when I was 8, this thing was my go-kart. I drove it everywhere. I'd spend hours driving laps around the yard. I would drive it back to Grandma and Grandpa's. I'd drive it everywhere. It's the first thing I ever drove on the road. And then I spent a lot of time raking hay for the neighbor with it. First pulling a 4-wheel David Bradley 4-wheel rake. Looks like my Oliver rake, just a David Bradley. Then he got some New Holland 56s and started pulling those with it. Then I started farming with it. Hard to believe she's been around that long. Sure doesn't seem that long, but it is. She's been a good old girl. Outside of, typical maintenance shit, points, plugs, oil changes, really haven't had to do a damn thing to it. It just goes and goes and goes. I wish I had an hour meter on it, because I'd hate to think of how many hours I put on that thing since we got it. I've run the wheels off of that thing. But I think she's earned some attention, so I guess we will see you guys tomorrow when the surgery begins. Well, here we go. Got the block draining. Shouldn't have to drain it at the radiator, because obviously the block drain is going to get everything down to this level right here, and we're only going to be working right here, so shouldn't have to drain it at the radiator, just here. But got to get rear side panels off. Got to get the exhaust off, which all we got to do is pop this clamp loose, and as long as it's loose, because I can't remember the last time I had it off the manifold, it'll come up through the hole in the hood. Get the hood off, get fuel line unhooked, get the carburetor off, get the manifold off, get the plugs out, take the plug wires off, and obviously before we do that, we'll put some tape on the plug wires with some numbers so that we don't gotta do any soul searching when we go to put it back together. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Upper radiator hose and thermostat housing got to come off. And really that's it, because, simplistic 1950s technology like it should be. There's nothing to it. So, I will get all of the peripheral crap off, and we will come back to you guys when we start getting into the meat and taters. Alright, so obviously the hood's off, side panels are off, fuel's off. I unhooked the fuel line, muffler's off. I took the air cleaner tube off just to get it out of the way. Plug wires are numbered and off, and the coil hangs right here, and I just took it off and laid it here just to get it out of the way. So, next step, we're going to get the manifold off real quick, which is just 4 bolts. This is a clamp-on style manifold. It doesn't have the dog ears, and it doesn't have actual gaskets on there. So, you'll see what I'm talking about here in a minute. You get everything off there, the engine is so tiny. And we'll give them a little liquid love just to... Luckily, the threads aren't really exposed on, that's the only These two, the threads are kind of exposed. The two shorties, the threads are not exposed, which is a good thing. And there's this one right behind the air cleaner that you can't get on with a ratchet. I mean, you could if you took the... That's bringing the whole stud out. Dandy. Oh, there it broke loose. If I can get them out, I'll probably pull... Well, gonna have to pull them out anyway to go to the machine shop, but we'll pull the studs all the way out, clean the threads up, and when they go back in, we'll anti-seize them. These engines don't necessarily run super duper hot to begin with, so the studs really shouldn't be in that bad a shape. Oh, you bastards. Whoops. Okay, try again. And there we go. Okay, now, to get the studs out of the head, you take two of your nuts and you run them on there. Need my wrench. We need two wrenches. And you jam them. And you get on the back one with any luck. Sometimes this takes luck. And actually, let's give her a little tappy tap, because sometimes that helps too. Oh, you're gonna be a little prick, ain't you? Sometimes you get lucky and other times they fight you. So, I guess we'll have to use a pipe wrench. At least on the long ones. I try to not do that, that way you don't mar them up, but sometimes she forces your hand. This should work on the shorties though, because that one already came loose. It was coming loose when I was taking the manifold off. Let's try this guy right here, see if it works. There we go, that one's coming out. So it's just going to be the long ones that are going to want to fight us. But you do this part while the head's still on the tractor and it's held solid. You're not fighting nearly as much. So The short ones are going to come out all right. The long ones we're going to need to get on with a pipe wrench. So I'll get them out, and then we'll move on to the next step. Get the thermostat elbow and thermostat off. I already got the hose hopefully loose. You can tell this ain't been off in a while. Never been off since we've had it. Bolts are a little crusty. Oops. The weird part is this thing's got gray paint on it. It's not, I don't know. Cannot explain that one because I do not know what caused that to have been painted gray. I don't know why anybody would have done something like that. It's not like it's faded funny. It's actually like you can see it real clear on this side. It's gray paint. If only she could talk, she could tell us exactly what was going on. Oh well, that broke loose way easier than I thought it would. Now, the fun part is going to be the fact that they got this all... You're kind of in a tight space here. I really prefer to not have to take the radiator off for this, because that'd be kind of dumb. Yeah, there we go. That'll work. Actually, you know what would work better? Let's just do this. Hey, that's using your noggin. Hey, where's the thermostat? Seriously. Pretty sure this thing's supposed to have a thermostat in it, and there ain't one. That's interesting. Now I'm curious. I'm gonna have to go look in the parts book and see if they call out a thermostat. I'm pretty damn sure they're... I mean, the housing looks like it's machined for a thermostat. Very interesting. We're gonna have to investigate this. Alright, so we're almost down to the last thing. Gotta get the rocker arm assembly and the push rods out before we can get to the head bolt. Which there's just these 4 studs here. They hold everything down. There's also an oil line that runs from here, from this rear head bolt to the center of the rocker shaft, which is that guy right there, which I already took off. I'm probably going to end up remaking that before this is all said and done, because I don't like the fact that it's made out of copper. It could be factory, but it also looks awful hand bent, which doesn't seem very factory neither. So, probably gonna end up remaking that out of steel when I put this back together, just to make it look nice. So anyway, first things first, we will get the rocker arm assembly out. That seems a little excessive. Normally these only torque to around, I think the 310s are like 29 foot-pounds or something. Deep well extension, or deep well socket ain't long enough to reach that one. Oops. Almost. Long-winded bastard. Also kind of surprised that they put lock washers on there, because normally you don't. Of course, that's not to say they belong on there, because who knows who has worked on this engine over its lifetime. With what we saw when we first brought it home, someone who didn't really have a clue what they were doing. Let go. And then we can pull push rods, which I made this guy way back when we did the engine in 1955, specifically for this, so you keep your push rods in order. And before I go busting it loose, same deal with the exhaust studs. I'm going to take these studs off while it's still on the tractor. That way you don't got to fight trying to keep the head in one spot. Oh yeah. That guide's loose. That guide's loose. That guide's loose. That guide's loose. We got some loose valve guides, alright. It'll be easier to tell just how bad they are once we get everything disassembled and you ain't got spring tension, but that's probably a pretty good indicator as to the source of our problem with oil fouling plugs. Alright, I kind of dabbed some of the oil out of there so we don't make such a mess. But ready to get the bolts out. The only two that really matter going back in the right order. Obviously, the oil bolt has to go back in the right spot, and then this lifting stud has to go back in the right spot. The rest of them don't really matter all too much. And I'm sure there's going to be some idiots on here that say, oh, you can't reuse head bolts, that's illegal. If they were some sort of high tensile strength, fucking torque to yield, or if this was a high performance pulling engine or a race engine or something off the wall like that, yeah, you're probably not going to want to reuse head bolts. This is a little 1949 four-banger with, I can't even remember, I think this is a 17.5 to 1 compression ratio or 16.5 to, it's not even that high a compression. You can reuse the head bolts on these things all you want. As long as the threads look good when you pull it apart and they ain't stretched, you ain't gonna hurt them head bolts. It wouldn't surprise me if the torque on these things isn't even only like around 125, 130 foot-pounds. I haven't looked that up yet, but I doubt it's a whole lot of torque for a 1/2-inch bolt to begin with. Alright, the last big hurdle we got is going to be how hard this thing wants to break loose from the block. Wow. That's scary. was not expecting that. I was expecting a fight. If you couldn't tell by my awkward silence when it just went bloop. So now the fun part's going to be lifting that bastard off of there by myself. Well, I figured out why the head came off so easy. Had a steel head gasket in it with copper sealing rings. That was probably a pretty high-end part back in the day. Unfortunately, the new one is fiber. But no biggie. We know that at some point, hopefully I'd like to do it next year, but we shall see how things play out. I want to find a block for it that doesn't got the crack right here and do the bottom end in this thing, so the head's gonna have to come back off anyhow. But at least when that time comes, the head will be done. We just got to take it off, set it aside, slap it back on when we're ready. But poor girl definitely been burning some Earl because she's all carboned up. And that's definitely oil carbon. That's just not from everyday burning fuel. So it was her time. The weird part is all the valves have the same shit on them except for that guy and that guy, which is odd. But yeah, the sleeves are actually in fairly decent shape. There's a little bit of a ridge. There's just a slight hint of a ridge. Obviously the cross hatching, at least I don't think you can. I'll need a light. I don't think you can see any cross hatching in them anymore, which if there's a ridge in it, you're not going to see it. But yeah, there's no hint of cross hatching, so but like I say, we know the bottom end's going to need done at some point. And normally this would be the time where you'd come in and check your block deck for flatness. You lay straight edge across there with a feeler gauge and you go through and you do all that and you check your sleeve protrusion and all that stuff. But like I say, we know the bottom end is going to get done at some point. So about the only thing I'm going to do to the block is I'll clean it, or I'll obviously clean the block deck up, take a ridge reamer, clean that carbon out of there and knock a little bit of that ridge off so we're not busting any piston rings. Although the pistons don't, well, yeah. Them pistons seem a little loosey-goosey in there. You can see the gap. But the thing ran so damn good, I have a hard time believing that they're actually in that rough a shape. It ain't like it was lacking any power. But anyway, the head is our focus, so I guess next thing is going to be to get all of the valves out, which before I do that, I'm going to take a picture of the top so that I know which valve retainers go back where. And then we will get the compressor out and pop the valves out. And we'll I ain't gonna bother getting pin gauges out or anything to gauge the guides because they're getting replaced, so it's pointless. But we'll stick the valves back in there and give them the jiggle test and see how loosey-goosey they really are. And we'll probably be pretty much done for the day, really. So let me get my picture taken of what I need to see here, and let me get the compressor out, and we'll catch you guys here in a second. Okay. So you pull your keepers out. These are actually rotators. That's pretty, I don't want to say high performance, but rotators on valves are kind of, oh wow. Come on, you little bastard. Okay, where did I put the hammer? There it is. I love it when they're stuck. Tells you that this thing ain't been apart in many moons. But the rotators always go on your exhaust valves. That way they don't get, it's supposed to help prevent them from getting carboned up. But hell, even the 310s don't have those on there, so it's kind of surprising that they're on here. Oops, damn it. It's also kind of odd that they got two different length valve springs. It's either that or that one's just fucked up, one of the two. The valves are all the same length. I don't know why that spring would be. I wonder if that spring's just junk. Yeah, that one's short too. Oh, they're shorter because of the rotators. Gotcha, gotcha, gotcha. Sticky, sticky. Come on. Wowzers. Oh, there it went. Just needs a little snap. Okay. There's that. Well, that guide's not terrible. That guide's not terrible, but I never really had any issues with number one oil fouling. That guide is bad. That guide is... I don't know if you can hear that. That guide is bad. That guide is atrocious. That one ain't terrible, but it ain't great. That one ain't bad, and then this one's just... wow. Which... 1 and 3 are the two that I always fought the most, and those are the two with the worst guides. Now, when we pull them out, Get them in the right order here. You want to check or look at the seats to see if they were kind of seating even. That one was not. It was heavier on one side than the other. I think the same with this one, although it got kind of oily when I took it out, so it's hard to tell. That one looks kind of even. That one doesn't look bad. That one doesn't look bad. That one is atrocious. That one's got carbon on the seat right there. Yeah, right there. She was... The intakes don't look bad. The exhausts look terrible. But outside of that, the rest of the head, at least from what I can tell, looks like it's in pretty damn good shape. So, and I'm going to have him go ahead and mill it to make sure it's flat, and that's going to increase our compression just a little bit because it's going to shrink that ignition chamber. And yeah, that's going to give her a little more power. Not a lot, 'cause it's probably only going to bump the compression up just like a couple %, but on a gasser, a little bit more compression is a big damn deal. So and the block looks, I mean, the block deck, yeah, there is a crack in it right there and right there, but that's actually fairly common on these Waukesha blocks. As long as the cracks are up here and not down here, which it hasn't been putting oil in the coolant, so. But like I say, the head gasket takes care of these, and it is not all uncommon. Really, on any of the older tractors, I know Farmall blocks are kind of prone to this. The Waukesha blocks, they all usually have cracks right here in the upper web. So that doesn't concern me too much. Plus, we know the block's going to get replaced here at some point anyhow. So, I guess I'm going to go inside and get on a confuser because I really want to investigate that there thermostat. Because I'm pretty sure there's supposed to be one there. And I'm going to go look at that real quick. Probably get some lunch, and we will come back out and give you the goings over what's going on and end the video. So we'll see you in a little bit. Well, I did a little investigating, and sure as shit, there's supposed to be a thermostat in there. My guess is, back in the day, there was this misconception that if you pulled the thermostat, the engine would run cooler. That is false. But guys would still do it. So my guess is they pulled the thermostat and just never put it back in. So I'm going to put a thermostat in it. And before I started working on this, I just reached in and felt the fan real quick, just out of curiosity. And there's some play in the water pump bearing. So I think I'm going to order a water pump while I'm at it, since we're right here. Because better to replace that thing now while it's easy to get to and it's sitting in a shop, rather than when I'm trying to spray or drill beans and it's puking its guts out in the middle of a field. Because while that's not a whole lot of play, it could run for an hour, it could run for 1,000, you never know. And it's the not knowing that just you replace it. That's called preventative maintenance for a reason. Fix it before it's fucked up. I also did some investigating on the valve springs, and the rotators were actually used. Sounds like somebody's pulling the driveway. False alarm. So the rotators were actually used on later engines. So something tells me this thing has been, the head's probably been done at least once in its life. It's a 1949. The head's probably been off of it at least once. You can almost guarantee it. But that was probably, if a dealer did the work on the tractor, they probably would have put the newest or the latest field upgrades in the motor when they put it back together. So chances are they put the rotators in, and the original valves, all 8 used the tall valve springs or 12 coils. When they went to the rotators, the exhaust valves got 10.5 coil springs that were shorter to make up for the extra height in the rotators. So when I call Coors Monday to order the water pump and the thermostat, I'm going to have to see about getting shorter springs and swapping out the ones I got, or 4 of the ones that they sent me, because all the ones I got are the same length. And that's a no bueno. But on the upside, the valves comparing the valves are the same. So that's good news. Damn it. Damn it. And then there's the new guides. Now the part that pisses me off a little bit about this is this tractor, made in 1949. The iron ore was probably mined up here in Minnesota and Michigan. The coal was probably mined somewhere down here in the Midwest coal fields. The steel was probably smelted in Gary or Pittsburgh or Youngstown or any of those steel towns from back in the day. The castings were all poured in Charles City. The engine was machined and assembled in, actually, the machine work and everything was done on the engine at the Waukesha plant in Wisconsin. The final assembly was done at the plant in Charles City. Everything on that tractor, right down to every last nut and bolt and raw materials, except for probably the rubber on the tires, that probably came from Central or South America, because even back then that was where all the rubber trees were. But everything on this tractor, right down to every last nut and bolt, was made in this country when it was new. Those valves, those springs, those guides, all made in Taiwan, because none of this stuff is made in the United States anymore. I have to fix a 100% completely American farm tractor with shit made overseas because we can't build a fucking thing in this country anymore, and that pisses me off. Something as simple as a goddamn engine exhaust valve, which shouldn't be that hard to make anymore. With CNC machining, those things should be able to be made for pennies on the dollar. You could probably turn a fucking exhaust valve if you I'm assuming they were probably forged blanks and then they machined them and hardened them. You could probably have an exhaust valve, wham bam, thank you Sam, the entire process done in less than an hour. And we can't do that anymore. I'm glad it's at least made in Taiwan, because if I had to pick an Asian country, they would have to be them, because they're a democratic state and they do not want to be associated with China in any way, shape, or form, and they're a good ally that we have in that area. But still, why the fuck can't we make something as simple as basic engine parts for an American-made engine in the United States? It's fucking retarded. Thank you, United States government. Thank you, United States fucking corporate policy. Fucking stupid. Pisses me off. But anyway, so that's where we're at. I got to get a water pump. I got to get a thermostat. Got to get 4 of these springs swapped, or got to get 4 of them springs swapped out, because you don't want to use, it won't work with 8 tall springs. The head's going in Monday. And I'm going to take, when you take the head in, you got to take the valves, because when they get the seats ground, they're going to want to lap the valves in. Obviously I don't have all the springs, so I won't be able to take him all the pieces to assemble the head. I'll just have him tell him when he laps the valves, number them, and then number the head, and that way I can put the valves back in the right holes, and I'll do the final assembly on the head. You got to take them a spec sheet with valve protrusion and run out on the head deck. And really that should be it as far as what they need for spec on the head. There might, oh, probably want to take those off. There might be a spec as far as insertion depth on the valve guides, but normally those go up to a shoulder, so I doubt it. But like I say, I'll scan the page out of the service manual and just take the whole page in with all the head specs to say, here, make it this. And then that will give me the evenings the rest of this week to tinker around getting the head clean, or getting the block deck cleaned up, getting or running a ridge reamer through all the sleeves to knock that ridge and the carbon off of it. Hopefully have the parts to change the water pump by the end of the week before I get the head back. Basically to spend the rest of the week cleaning parts and getting everything ready to put back together. So I guess with that, we will catch you guys on the next one. I'm not working on this the rest of the weekend because probably this afternoon I'm going to go over to Tyler's and we're going to clean up some walnut trees at his place. And hopefully tomorrow the weather cooperates. I want to go clean another fence row, which that one I'm going to have to recruit some help for, because I'm going to have to get up in the bucket of the tractor to knock the limbs off because I can't reach them from the ground even with the pole saw. So anyway, the next video you see will probably be fence row cleaning. I was going to make this 2 parts on this project, but I think I might make it 3. I'll probably make a shorty throughout the week to upload on Friday of getting all the stuff ready for final assembly and changing the water pump, and then the last video will be slapping the head back on and setting the valves and torquing everything down and running it, and then hot torquing it and all that fancy crap. So that's probably gonna be the order of the next video. This one, fence row cleaning, prepping this thing for reassembly, and then final reassembly. So, and you're probably gonna get one more midweek. I dinked around with that international freezer a little bit and found the smoking gun. Not working yet, but hopefully we can get some light shed on that situation by a fellow YouTuber. So anyway, enough rambling. That's it for this one. We'll catch you all on the next one.